Hello, it's Steve Mills here, and welcome to the Results Mastery podcast. It's great to have you back. If you're here for the first time, it's great to have you here. One thing I really passionately believe in is making sure that people get enough value out of what I do, whether that's working with them as a consultant, a trainer, an advisor, or indeed here on my podcast. So, my pledge to you today is to make your next, however long it takes, probably about 15 minutes, well worth the time. Before I do, I got a little bit of an apology, and that is in the background here, you may hear some snorting and grunting noises. Now, just to clarify, that's not me. That is my bulldog called Bentley. I like to tell people I've always wanted a Bentley and now I've got one. Not quite what I had in mind, but he is lovely and he's here in the office with me right now. He seems to have quietened down, but a minute ago when I was about to start, he was doing what bulldogs do, and that is make all sorts of strange noises. And those noises can emanate from both ends, I would hasten to add. But enough about that. Let me crack on with what we're going to talk about today. So, recently I was asked a question, and I really do believe quite passionately that questions are the answer. What do I mean by that? I mean that by asking yourself a better quality of question, you get a better quality of answer. Let me just demonstrate. So if I said to you, uh, why aren't you successful? You could probably come up with an answer. If I said to you, why do you always fail? You could probably come up with an answer. And so for me, asking somebody why aren't you more successful is more uh, positive because people will come up with the answers as to why they're not more successful and therefore what they could do about it. Whereas if I asked, how come you're always a failure? They'd say, well, it's because of this, and this. Now you could say, well, if they got rid of those reasons, that'd work as well. But my point being that the quality of the questions you ask is really, really powerful. Now, I was recently asked a question, and somebody said to me, why don't people buy from you? That's another really powerful question, isn't it? Why don't people buy from you? What a good question for you to sit down and ask yourself or ask your team, why don't people buy from us? Or even ask your customers. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there's this guy called Steve Mills, and he asked people why people don't buy from him. And I'd like to ask you as a customer, what do you think it is? Why would, you've clearly bought from me. Why do you think people wouldn't? What do you think it is? Now, so really good question. Another good question, by the way, is something like, how can I be more successful? Or what about how can I make £10,000 in the next 90 days? Well, that could be £10 million, dependent on the size of your business and your overall goals. But how can I make X in this time? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to make X amount of money in Y amount of time? And really, really powerful. Let me just go back to my initial question there, and that is why people don't buy from me. I thought about it. I thought, do you know, it's a really interesting question, and I wonder why it is. So I did a little bit of research myself. I asked a few people, and they came up with some answers, and I'd like to share them with you because I think they're really interesting, even though the evidence points to that not being the case, in my opinion, which actually, my opinion doesn't really matter. All that matters is the opinion of my prospects, the people on my list, the people I try to win business from. And so I need to look at what I need to do to change that mindset almost. Um, So let me just go through what they've said and what I think the reasons are. So firstly, they said that they think that I can't help them to get more leads. Now, I understand that because there's a lot of people out there, isn't there, doing what I do. I'll help you. Get on my program, get on my program, get on my program. We're all shouting to, sign up to this program or that program, or, I'll be your advisor, I'll be your business coach, I'll be your business and growth advisor, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people out there. Now, like in all professions, the quality of those people varies a lot. Some people are not that good, some are okay, some are great, and some are brilliant. And, I really do believe that the vast majority of people in any industry, take accountants, it's exactly the same. You've got, let's say, out of 100 accountants, so we can use percentages, 2% of them are like really, really good. They're world class. They're in the they're in the top 2%. Um, Probably about 15% are quite good. They're good. They're better than most. They're at the nearly their level. The next sort of group are probably about, I don't know, 60%. Most people are okay. They're good. But let me ask you, in marketing, if you do a good job, if you do okay, what sort of rewards do you get? What sort of rewards do businesses get who are okay at marketing? The truth is they get okay results. But okay, if you look at everybody, it's actually pretty poor results. They don't even get decent results. Most businesses spend most of their marketing budget and it's wasted. It doesn't work. So why is that? Well, you could argue it's lack of expertise. And then we've got the rest of them, which I'm not quite sure percentage wise, but it's about, I don't know, 15, 20% are not very good at all. And they soon get found out and they soon disappear and go and decide to do something else. But also, if you examine where people come from, who are people like me? Where do they come from? Often they come from corporate world. I've had a job as a marketing director for a big corporate company. And then I think, do you know what? I'm fed up with all the traveling and doing this and doing that. And they decide that it would be better to go and work from home and be a consultant. And the truth of the matter is there, I believe, that there is no correlation whatsoever between a marketing person who's worked for a big corporate and one that works for a small business. Their marketing is a million miles away. The main focus for small businesses should be overcoming the word obscurity, because that's what we all suffer from. And I include myself in that. Not enough people know about me. Not enough people know about you. I'm not known. If your target market was hotels on the Isle of Wight, where I live, and you've only got a database of 100 people, then you're missing out because I don't know how many, but there's certainly a lot more than 100 hotels on the Isle of Wight. And so I need to make sure that those people, my target market, know about me, because without that, that's step one of the 6 steps in the results mastery program, getting people to overcome obscurity. So that said, let's think about where we go next. If that's a problem, if getting getting people to know you is tough, then we need to think about what's next, and that is getting people to communicate with you. It's getting people to talk to you, to come back to you. So you're not just pushing messages out there all the time. And I've developed, as I said, a six-step process. I'll not go through that now because I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But you get the idea. And the big mistake that a lot of when people come from corporate world is they just go, here's this. Because they're not, if you work for Nike, and what do Nike do? Basically, they go, here's this fantastic product, and millions of people buy it. Apple, here's the new iPhone. It's all singing, all dancing, got all these benefits, and millions of people buy it. It's not that difficult. Whereas if I go, here's a new program, here's a new service I'm offering. I'm not going to get the same results. So, it's a world of difference. So, that I think is a really important thing. Now, I don't come from that background. Yeah, I've spent 30 years in the trenches, helping businesses with their marketing. And, I've learned my trade, not from going to a university with all respect, but by listening and learning from the world's leading sales, marketing, and business growth experts. 30 years. Just think about that for a while. When somebody says to me or thinks, Steve can't help me, and yet I've been helping people for 30 years. Is that true? Can I help you? Have I got experience enough to make a difference? The answer is yes, I have. I have got that ability. I've spent a lot of time learning. I reckon it's somewhere around about 150,000 hours of learning. Now, you don't have to be that bright to know to learn stuff if you've put that much effort in. I know, for example, I've spent over £25,000 on books and audio programs and video programs alone, let alone about all the seminars that I've been to. So, I'm a little bit of an unusual catch here. Uh, but that's one of the reasons why people don't buy from me. They think I can't help. Another reason is they think that I'm only going to cost them money, you know, and I understand this because what happens often is they hire somebody to help and they just end up costing them money. That happens. And do you know what? That sometimes happens with me as well because I provide advice to people and then they don't carry it out. How bizarre is that? I'll tell them, right, what you need to do is this. And I phone them up. I'll give you a perfect example. People often come on my LinkedIn training. And I always follow up with that training, follow up to see, have they got any questions? Is there anything else we can help with? How are they doing? And so on and so forth. So a typical phone call goes like this. Hi, it's Steve Mills here. You came on my LinkedIn workshop, I think it's about 3 weeks ago, and I'm just calling out of courtesy just to see if you've got any questions at all and find out how you're doing. And the answer is something like this. Well, to be honest, Steve, it was great. Really good seminar. Really enjoyed it. But do you know what? I've been so busy with stuff. I haven't really done anything. And that always disappoints me because I want people to be successful. That helps me, it helps them. And there's nothing worse than spending a day on a seminar and not doing anything and not getting any results. For me, anyway, I'd hate to do that. It'd be like a waste of a day, but like a day thrown away. Why would I do that? And yet a lot of people do it. And I'll be honest with you, I've done it myself to some extent. I've been on training, I've watched videos, I've read books and not fully implemented to the level that deep down I know I could have. So, I'm not throwing stones here. I'm not saying I'm perfect because I'm definitely not. But it's something that I'm quite passionate about in my business, making sure I don't FTI, and that stands for fail to implement, because that's the number one reason I'd say, based on over 30 years of advising people, the number one reason for lack of business success is people failing to implement effective marketing plans. Because if you want to grow your business, there's only two ways. And specifically, if you want to grow your profit in your business, which is the purpose of a business, to make a profit, if you want to do that, then there are only two ways. One is to reduce costs, and two is to increase sales. So you've got to focus on those two things. There's no other way. There are many ways of increasing sales and many ways of reducing profit. So my advice to you would be to go ahead and think about what you can do to reduce costs right now. What could you do to reduce costs? There's something. You can save this, you can save that, you can save something else. You can save 5, 10, 20% of your costs right now, today. Go and do it. Why wouldn't you? Then you've got to think about increasing sales because there's only so much you can save. You can't spend nothing. So you've got to, if you want to grow your business, if you don't, switch me off. That's my advice. Save wasting time here. But if you do want to grow your business, then you've got to focus on increasing sales. And you can do that by three ways again. One, get new customers. Two, increase the average transaction value. Three, increase the frequency of repurchase. That's it. Okay, those three things. Get more, if you look at it from a supermarket metaphor, yeah, you got to get more people in the door. You've got to get them to buy more expensive products or buy more products, fill their basket more. And you've got to get them to come back to your supermarket rather than to go elsewhere. That's it. Okay, so let me ask you another question. Remember, I said right at the beginning, questions are the key. Let me ask you another question. Where do you spend most of your time, money, and effort? And the answer, I know, it's trying to get new customers because that's what everybody does. And that is the hardest, most expensive, most time consuming, least profitable thing that you can do. There's an amount of money, a money pit that is sitting in your business, and it is called harvesting the profit from your current and past clients. They're your best chance of selling anything to anybody ever. And yet most businesses do very little in order to do that. So, focus on that, and that'll get you some great results. So, the question about, is Steve going to cost me money? Let me just tell you this. If you wanted to join my Results Mastery program, which is a 12-month program, full of we have weekly meetings, weekly mastermind group meetings. You gain access to my university, which is an online training program. We do weekly Q&As. You can have book one-to-one meetings with me as and when you need them, and so on. Let me just give you an overview of that. So that costs £400 per month, right? £400 per month. If you work that out, it's something like for £4,800 for the year, right? Now, my question is this. Would I, with my 30 years of experience and my knowledge, be able to make you more than £4,800 worth of additional income within 12 months? That's my question. Now, if you think I can't, then you're wrong. It's as simple as that. You're wrong. I would estimate for a business startup, somebody starting from scratch, no business, no customers, it's day one. I'd help you make a minimum of 50 grand, probably up towards 100 in the first year. That would be pretty much typical. If you've been trading for a while, I don't know, you're a one-person business, you've been going for a year or two, something like that, and you may be turning over 60, 70, 80, let's say 50 to 100 grand, I'd hope to be getting you towards the 200 grand mark. If you're a 200 grand plus business, I'd hope to get you to the 500,000. If you're a million plus business, I think another 30–40% on top of that. Once you get to a certain height, the percentage increases get more difficult. Going from 50 to 100 grand is a lot easier than going from a million to 2 million. But still 300 grand's not bad for an investment of 4,800, is it? So how do I know that? Well, I know that based on over, 30 years of experience in doing it and working with businesses, assuming you're going to take action. If you don't take action, don't join. I really implore you not to join if you're not going to do anything. But if you are committed, if you are willing to invest time, money, and effort in this, then this is a great thing. Now, I offer a special deal with this to guarantee. I like to guarantee what I'm talking about. So let me just tell you about that. So that comes in the form of a 2 month guarantee. So I guarantee that within 2 months, you'll have earned enough to pay for the whole year. Now, bear in mind, you don't pay up front. You don't pay the 4,800. Actually, you can do. If you pay up front, it only costs you costs you 4,000. So you save 2 months' money. But let's say you start off paying £400 a month, and you pay that the first month, you pay that the second month. If you've not made at least £4,800, I'll give you the £800 back. You with me the first 2 months that you've already paid. I'll give you that back. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it? And to be honest, it's a ridiculous offer because, if you don't make at least £4,800 in the 2 months that you're working with me, you know, well, yeah, I mean, that has never happened, apart from, I think, on a couple of occasions where people have done nothing. If you do nothing, guess what results you get? You get no results. The old saying I really love, if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. And if you've not got much right now, I mean, I hear, and I don't know whether this is true, but somebody told me, who I tend to believe, that the average consultant earns less than 30 grand a year. 30 grand a year, and they call themselves a consultant. That's not a lot of money, really. You can get more working at B&Q, I think. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, if I'm sure there are other reasons, by the way, they can't afford it, but I could argue certainly that if they can't afford it, they can't afford not to do it. And another reason, they don't have time. They don't want to grow their business, and that's a good reason. If you don't want to grow your business, don't don't come and work with me. I'll say that out strong, because I'm about helping people, not by designing new logos and stuff like that, leave that to a designer. I'm about how can you get more leads and how can you improve the conversion rate of those leads and how can you make sure that you maximize that return on investment by keeping clients and keeping them happy and cross-selling them into other products and services and adding them to continuation programs. That's what gets me out of bed. That's what I enjoy doing, and that's how I can help you. So if you half believe me and you want to book a meeting with me to talk about what you're doing right now, how it's working out, and how, with my help, you can improve those results, then get in touch. Go to my website. If you're watching this on video, you'll see it on the wall behind you. Sorry, behind me rather, and that is results-mastery.com. If you're listening on my podcast on audio, then just to remind you, it's results-mastery.com. What you'll see on there is a big gold button on the home page. Click on that. That gives you access to my diary so you can book a time for a meeting online on Zoom at a time that's good for you. It's about half an hour. So worst case is you waste half an hour of your time and my time. Best case is you take the best action you could possibly take this year that's going to make you hopefully hundreds of thousands of pounds of additional income. Might be worth the risk. Thanks very much for listening. Just one other thing, if you want to keep up to date with everything that I do on my podcast, make sure you subscribe. If you're on my YouTube channel listening to this, then again, subscribe. No, don't subscribe, subscribe. Let me get that right. There's no editing in these videos, by the way. I just do them. I call it raw footage. Some people say I'm too lazy to edit them, and the truth is they're right. So this is raw footage. This is Steve Mills on the Results Mastery podcast saying thanks for listening, and look forward to speaking to you some way down the line. Thanks very much.